My name is Barry Loveland, and I'm here on behalf of the LGBT Center of Central Pennsylvania History Project. Today's date is November 20th, 2022, and we're here for an oral history interview with Damon Bartraw. This interview is taking place...
And you got my name right. So that's...
Oh, good. This interview is taking place over Zoom. And Damon, do we have your permission to record the interview today?
You do.
Okay, great. And then we have a consent form that I sent you that you can read over and then complete and sign later and get back to me.
Correct.
Okay. Just by way of explanation to our viewers, I had a little bit of a mishap with my eye. I had a fall and so I'm fine, but it may look a little distracting to you. All right, so first of all, could you please just say and spell your full name?
It's Damon Bartraw, D-A-M-O-N, last name Bartraw, B-A-R-T-R-A-W.
Okay. And also, could you give your preferred pronouns?
He, him.
Okay. And what is your date of birth?
Back in June of 1970.
Okay. And where were you born?
Williamsport, Pennsylvania.
Okay, good. So if you could start out by talking just a little bit about your family of origin, whether you had siblings, parents, and anything about family life and so forth growing up. I presume in Williamsport or Central PA in general.
Right. So my mother and father, we grew up in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I am the middle child of 3 kids. I have an older sister, younger brother. As far as like growing up, there were some challenges that, existed in our family. So can't get into a lot of detail, but generally it was an okay. I mean, we grew up very meager means, so we did what we could, and luckily I had the support of my grandparents at the time, so we would visit them on weekends, and they actually taught me how to cook and taught me how ways to talk to people and just have sincerity and just general ways how to treat people, so which was nice. Back when I was 14, my parents got divorced, and me and my mother and my brother moved to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So, and I went to school, Central Dauphin High School, and I graduated in 1988. My brother went to live with my father in Williamsport because he stayed there. My mother and my siblings are still living. My father passed away last year, and so I should say I lived in Harrisburg until probably 1991, and I moved to Philadelphia with my boyfriend at the time, and then I lived there till 1998, and then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. So I've gotten from one city to another.
What was school life like for you?
In Williamsport, it was a lot different than Harrisburg. So Williamsport, it was like if you weren't a jock or a prep, you didn't really belong to any kind of circles. So you were made fun of, or you were blended in with the other people. The abnormals, as they called them back then. And so it wasn't a very positive time back then. And so when the divorce came, I was so scared about moving, but I'm glad I did, because it was like the best step I ever took. So when I moved to Harrisburg and went to Central Dauphin East High School, there were so many different types of people, and I was like, this is a new school. Nobody knows you. You need to, I had this mentality when I got there. I'm like, you need to start getting involved with other people. and I was an introvert most of my life. So this started the extrovert side of me. So I started to get to know different people from different groups. I took like business. There was three different levels of classes. So there was general, business, and college prep, and I was in the middle. I did the business. And then I was in the choir, I was in the musicals, art club. I'm trying to think back then. There's a couple other clubs I belonged to, but my goal was to meet different people in sports or band or like the college prep folks. It's like I made friends in each group. So I had my general set of friends, but I could actually talk to other people as well. I mean, I was still kind of, I don't know, this was a long time ago, so I'm sure I was probably made fun of back then at one point or another. But, you know, I was very trendy. I had the piano tie, I had the paisley shirts, I had, you know, my favorite artists were Madonna and Prince and Michael Jackson, and Boy George and George Michael and all these ones. So that's the kind of dress that I had back then as well. So I just, you know, I tried to be as much as the person I am, but still kind of blend in with other people as well. So I didn't go to far extremes or anything, but I did have friends that did. The blue hair, I mean, it seems so mild compared to today, but you know, I had friends that got pregnant in high school and they were pregnant, and we were friends with them. And I was always friends with when I considered myself as well was an outcast. So the smokers and like the girls that got pregnant and, so on and so forth. So I was a friend to everybody. So I just tried to, keep a general good persona with everyone.
And what was your coming out process like? And when did you first start coming out?
Came out, I think, officially at 21. So I had some feelings back then that I was like, when I was younger, I was like, I saw pictures of guys and I was like, I want to look like that. Because I was a big kid. I wore the husky jeans. So I always saw these guys and I was like, oh, do I want to look like that? And then I found out later that, oh, I was attracted to that. Hello. So I went to school for interior design after trying to finally figure out a major that I could afford to go to. There's a lot. I wanted to go to school for opera and a couple other things, but the schools I couldn't afford. So my mom's like, well, you like decorating and you like doing this and that. So she said, why don't you settle it down on some kind of artistic one that we can afford the school, luckily for Pell Grants and student loans. Back in the day, I could afford to go to an art school. So I chose interior design and I met one of my best friends. I'm still friends with him till today. And he started to do an internship with an architecture firm, I believe it. And he was telling me about him and his boss would go out to these clubs at night. And I was like, okay. So that kind of got me suspicious there to begin with. And then at the time, I think I'd seen a story on TV about a youth group in Philadelphia. And I was like, that'd be something maybe I could try. And back there, it was scary. It isn't like today. It was like if people found out you were, you'd be criticized and, taunted and, make your life a living hell pretty much. So back then you're like, you were afraid of running into somebody that you knew. You're like, uh-oh, kind of thing. So like I said, I saw something, it was on PBS or something. It was about a youth group in Philadelphia. And I was like, well, I wish they had one here in Harrisburg because, I'm like, 18, 19. And I'm like, I don't want to drive all the way to Philadelphia to do that. That was like two hours away, which is mild to me now compared to my commute. But so I was like, oh, okay, well, I kind of put it on the back burner. And then I was reading something in a paper. It was a local paper, or was it was the Harrisburg paper, I can't remember, about Sharon starting this group. And she had her name and she was starting this youth group. And I said, well, it's about time. They finally had something come to Harrisburg. So I was like, it took me a while. I think it had started and it was going for maybe 6 months, I guess, or something like that. Because it took me, I had to get the courage up enough to go. So, and I was like, okay, I decided, you just got to force yourself to do things. So I didn't know any gay people at all. The only gay icons we had back then were Billy Crystal on Soap, which I think he slept with a woman. Steven on Dynasty, which I think he slept with a woman. And there was probably one other person, but Steven wasn't too flamboyant, but Billy Crystal was. So, but it's like we had no role models. Now there's one in every show pretty much. There's a gay person in every show. So, so back then, let me think. So I finally got the courage to go. And I was like, okay, it was at Planned Parenthood, I believe. I think it's where the building was. And I was like, okay. So I found out the address. We didn't have GPS back then, so and so forth. And I think I eventually found it. But the funny part is, I remember this specifically. I dressed up like I would never dress. Because I was like, what if I run into somebody I know, or somebody, somebody could tell somebody that I know, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, Lord. So I wore a hat. I wore, like, I think different glasses that I had. I remember I'm wearing flannel. Of course, I wear that now, but that was back then. You're like, okay, flannel shirt and boots and jeans. So I tried to disguise myself. And I walked in and they welcomed me. And there was like, I believe there were 6 people in there, 6 people in the group already. And unfortunately, I don't remember a lot of their names. I'm so sorry. I am 52, so. But they were so welcoming, and I felt comfortable pretty much like right off the bat. I think I was comfortable within the first half an hour of the meeting. So, and Sharon was great. She like led the meeting, and she asked us our first name, and what brought you there. I kind of remember all that. So, but it opened my eyes to a whole new world that I had never seen in my life. So, and I felt like I finally, there's people like me. So there's other people like me in Harrisburg. Harrisburg's not a small town or anything. So it's like you knew you had to be some other kinds of people in there. So, but that was my first meeting there. And then, I think was it once a week? I can't remember, but we continue to go to every meeting at that point. So.
And how long do you think you were involved with the group, approximately?
I'd say probably like a year and a half, I'm thinking, or maybe 2 years. It's somewhere in that realm. Because I remember we had marched in the New York Pride Parade. I wonder if we marched in the Philadelphia one. I can't remember. But I remember hanging out with people and going to this one girl, Allison's house, to watch movies. And then I met my first boyfriend there. His name was John. And then I met my second boyfriend there. He was Benito. And I was with him for 7 years. So it had to be, at least a year and a half.
So what are some of your memories about the group's meetings or special events that you attended?
I remember people getting very heartfelt with their conversations, and they discussed issues that they've had and so on and so forth. And I'm definitely not an open book. I mean, I am probably more today than I was back then. But I kept all my stories to myself, and I just sat and listened. And I remember everything from coming out stories where kids were kicked out onto the street. I remember kids being beat, definitely criticized by their peers. That was a big thing. And then people just trying to figure out who they were and how they fit into even the gay world. Because there's, now there's so many pronouns and descriptions of people. It's kind of it's too much for me to count at the moment. Back then we only had like gay, lesbian, and bisexual. So and transgender, but things have diversified so much now into different realms. But as far as the meetings go, I remember very positive, especially by Sharon, very positive vibes. And I think there was a 12-year-old, and I can't remember his name. I remember what he looks like. But he was kicked out of his parents' house, and somebody took him in that was related with the group. And I mean, I thought that was the best thing I've ever seen. Somebody take care of this kid, that was kicked out and unloved just because he came out to his parents. Now kids come out, they come out like, I don't know, as young as like probably 9-10 years old now. But back then, 12 years old, I was like, boy, that's really young. And I thought that took a while. But I remember we did, we had special outings that were group sponsored. And then we went into peer mentoring, peer counseling, stuff like that. So we had a group that traveled to a couple different places. I think there were like schools and stuff, and we talked to the students about being gay, and they'd ask questions and so on and so forth. So I really liked that part of it, that once I knew who I was and comfortable who I was able to go out and mentor other people that were outside sources. So, but we always had a great time. We hung out at each other's houses. I think you talked to Frank, one of my old friends, and we used to go to his house and hang out. I remember Allison's. There's a couple other places. So, but we tried to get it together as much as we could because we felt accepted. This was my new group of friends. So, and a lot of my other friends at that period, I think I didn't stop communicating with, but it's like I just didn't have time to talk to them anymore because I had my whole new group that I associated with. So, but it's funny how time passes. You go back to make friendship, you go back and become friends again with your old friends as well. So it was very nice. It was a good experience. And I thank Sharon a lot. Her and her husband, I mean, were great. I think they had to get together at their house, I think, as well. But I think it defined who I became. I think wrap it up that simply.
And were there speakers at some of these meetings and so forth? What kind of topics did they discuss other than coming out stories?
Trying to think. I knew there were topics that they talked about, and I think we did have guest speakers. I know we definitely had one from Planned Parenthood about like safe sex and that kind of stuff like that, because we were coming off of the AIDS era right there, so we were very concerned about safe sex and so on and so forth at that point. And they definitely educated us on different things you could use. Like, I didn't know what a dental dam was until that point. I was like, oh, okay. And the girls of the group definitely made sure we knew what they were. So, but yeah, I do remember them talking about a lot of topics. Unfortunately, I don't remember a lot of them.
And you mentioned going to maybe one or two of the Pride events
Yes,
with the
we
group.
paired up with the youth group of New York, and I don't know if we marched in there twice, or I know I met RuPaul on one of them, one of those trips. So I was happy about that. Um, but it was a great time. It was a great bonding experience. And it was so nice, like I said, at that time, in that time period, to be with other people that were just like you. So, and to be not afraid to show who you were and march in a parade and be televised on TV. I don't know if it was, I'm sure they had videotapes back then too, um, but just to, it was mesmerizing. I can't really explain it. It was just eye-opening, mesmerizing, and just fantastic at the time. You had such a great time.
Yeah, I'm sure it was quite amazing to see that number of people in one place that were all
Right.
gay.
Especially New York's parade. Holy moly. That thing was, it was huge. And then Harrisburg started having their Pride festivals. I can't remember. I can't remember the first one I went to, but I was like, boy, this is so small in comparison. I think they had it in a park or something, but it was still nice to see that community come out. So, because like I said, you didn't see all that growing up.
Now, were you still in high school when you started going to the group, or were you graduating?
Now, college.
Oh, you're in college. Okay. Which
Mm-hmm.
which college did you attend?
I went to Bradley Academy of the Arts in York, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
So, which I think was closed. So both my colleges were closed. I went to Art Institute of Philadelphia after that, and that one closed as well. I was like, what's going on with these colleges?
And I think you mentioned something about that you helped or helped choose the name of the group.
Yes. Oh, well, I don't know if I consider myself one of the founding people, but I mean, I know I was there in the first year. So, we were trying to come up with names, and I was like, I think we all kind of figured it out together, but we were all putting our thoughts into it. We're like, well, we want to say this. And then I think the one bisexual member, she's like, I want to make sure I'm featured in it. So that's what came up with Bi Gly. It started with bisexual at the beginning because everything always was gay lesbian at the beginning. She's like, can we please have bisexual at the front? So we voted and came up with that. And it's funny because I actually have the t-shirt that we designed for it. You want to see it?
Yes.
Look at that. I don't know, Heron.
Oh, there now I can see part
They're
of it.
fuzzing out.
Yeah, a
Here,
little bit, but
I'll send you a picture of it.
yeah.
I think it's because it's not a person, it's not photographing.
Yeah, we have a collection of materials, and I don't know if you'd ever want to part with that, but we would love to have one of those. And if you don't want to part with the original, then please send us a photo of it, and at least we'll have that.
Yeah, I definitely would.
Great.
I could probably get it made onto another shirt. But it's so funny. It's like it was, I don't know. We drew it out, and then it was somebody airbrushed it. And the freedom rings are part of the design, which that was a big symbol back then.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much today. It's like, the flag has changed so many times too. But the freedom rings were a big thing back then. Everybody wanted those things. But yeah, I was proud to be in that beginning part that actually named the group. So.
And how has the group, being a part of the group, affected your life, do you think?
I think it made me a stronger person, a more outgoing person. I think I have to have more empathy. I think it helped me with that as well. And it helped me find a relationship that I had for 7 years, through that group. It was life building, you know. Like I said, to me, I don't think there was anything negative about it. I think it was all like positive things about it.
And you mentioned reconnecting with some of the people that have been involved with the group when you were first there. Have you formed some lasting friendships from the group?
Oh yeah. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. I know I'm friends with like 4 or 5 people still from the group. So, and we don't talk all the time, but we're still friends. I think once you're a friend for life, kind of thing. So, I mean, I get together with old friends now, especially when I go home to Pennsylvania. It's like we were never apart, kind of thing. So, you just try to catch up on your life. But with thanks to Facebook, everybody pretty much knows what's going on most of the time. So we didn't have Facebook back then. So, that was a good way of reconnecting, and people criticize it. But I mean, honestly, it's, a good way to keep in touch with people that you haven't talked to in years, or family.
Well, maybe you could talk a little bit about after you moved to Philadelphia, and I guess you attended the art school there, and what else did you do there?
Oh, okay. So I had graduated from Bradley Academy, and so I moved to Philadelphia with Benito, who I had met in the group, and we got an apartment, 20th and Spring Garden, Philadelphia. So it was a big step, and my mom was kind of shocked when I told her, but I was already like in the process of, I'm moving with my boyfriend. So it was my first like official coming out to my mother, I think, when I said that. She kind of knew, I mean, but I didn't really talk about it. So, my life was my life. And at that point, I said, well, I'm moving my boyfriend. She's like, the only thing my mom was really concerned about, it wasn't, a lot of people were like, well, people are going to make fun of you, or you're going to be discarded. She wasn't like that. She was worried about more like AIDS and diseases. So my mom's like, she's like, I'm worried about you getting a disease. And I said, Mom, you understand who I am? It's, I'm very careful. I'm very clean. I think you get how the person I am. I'm like, I'm not going to let that happen. So, and so I packed up my stuff and moved to Philadelphia, and I think I had started going to Art Institute of Philadelphia already before I even moved there. Yeah, because I was taking the train down. But then I got there and finished up school, and I was working a couple different jobs. I think I worked at John Wanamaker downtown, and I worked someplace else. But I've always been in retail ever since I started in '88. I've been in retail pretty much my whole life. But I'm a visual merchandiser. Now I'm a manager, but I've been a visual merchandiser most of my life. So I always worked through school. I think, Bradley, I had like 3 jobs that I worked, and Art Institute, I know I had like at least 1 or 2 jobs that I worked. But I always found side jobs. So I'm good at finding jobs for some reason, which is helpful. But so we lived there, and I graduated college, and I couldn't find, unfortunately, anything in the field that I went to college for. So I stayed in retail. I worked for Macy's. I worked for Saks Fifth Avenue. A couple different. I tell people I work for every department store under the sun, pretty much. And so in '98, me and my ex decided to go our separate ways, and So we were going to get an apartment together, and then things he had changed his mind and decided he wanted his own place. But unfortunately, we had already given the apartment up. So I had to make a quick decision of what I wanted to do. And I had a friend, Po Kim, who was actually a sister of one of my other friends. We became friends, and she was moving from Coral Gables, Florida to Atlanta. And she's like, well, Atlanta's nice. And I was always told Atlanta, there's money to be made down here. And, you know, and it was like the new up and coming area. And of course, the only thing I knew about Atlanta was designing women. And I was like, well, designing women, they're from there. So it was funny. And then she said, well, just come down and try it, you know, for like a month or so and just see how you like it. So everything in the apartment went into storage. I mean, I think it was in Philadelphia. It was a storage place. It was downtown. So all my stuff went in there, and then I just packed up my car and drove to Atlanta. And I ended up living with her for about 6 months, and then I met my boyfriend of a year and a half, 2 years, when I was living with her, and I ended up moving in with him up and outside of Atlanta, and that's where the area I'm still in the same area that we moved into. And it's like I moved 3 different places with 1 mile distance up here. But that's how I ended up in Atlanta. And I got a job the first week I was here. Yeah, so again with Macy's.
And have you, in your adult life, have you connected in any ways with the LGBTQ community in terms of being active in any organizations or events or things like that?
I did probably in my 20s. I think, you know, as far as like moving to Atlanta, it was, you know, I went out to the clubs and all that stuff back then. You know, I don't go anymore, but I participated, you know, as far as like going to the parades and so on and so forth, but I was never in any organizations down here, unfortunately. So I just made a life for myself, and, you know, you get so busy with work and sometimes like that, you don't have as much free time as you had at one point. And if you know Atlanta, it takes forever to get to one place to another. So with traffic, it could take 2 hours just to go downtown. So it gets a little complicated that way. So I'm up in the suburbs of Atlanta, and I really don't get into the city unless I'm working.
And in terms of relationships, have you found another relationship since the one you just described?
Nope. I've been single since 2001 or 2. But I don't know, I've just found it easier that way. It's just less drama. I like having the bed to myself. I live with my best friend, who's been my roommate since 2003 or 4. So I have I guess my chosen family, in which I've always had a chosen family. I've had a chosen family back when I lived in Harrisburg, and in Philadelphia, and here. So it's like when your family isn't around, you find other people to become your family. So I've been blessed with so many great friends that have supported me and been there for me. Whether you were moving and they needed help and you needed help moving, or just somebody to talk to. So, and you know, my best friend, he's here to talk to, and it's nice. It's nice to have somebody to come home every evening from work and have a conversation with.
And has your family pretty well accepted your sexuality and so forth since
Oh yeah,
that time, and you've got a good relationship with them now?
yeah, I do. I guess I always consider myself the black sheep of the family. if you can use that terminology any longer in this world. But it's funny because my aunt's like, you're the rock of the family. And I'm like, how did I become the rock of the family? I was the one who was the outcast of the family. I never understand. So she's like, well, you're the rock of the family now. So everybody comes to me and everybody orbits around me. So I moved to Atlanta to the South. Then my sister moved to the South. And then my mother moved with my sister to the South. So it's kind of thing. They both live in Tennessee, and I live in Georgia. But they always kind of follow me around. So I try to be very supportive.
Let's see. Maybe you could just describe if there were any what you consider important events or turning points in your life.
I think turning points come when you decide to do something else. I think when you finally come to the decision, you're like, I need to do something else, or I need to take another job, or I mean, there's been many turning points in my life. Every new company I started with, or the decision to come out. I mean, decisions to relate with other gay people. It's kind of hard to pinpoint because there's been so many changes, especially moving from one city to another. I mean, moving from Harrisburg to Philadelphia was a big thing back then. So you're like, oh my God, you're going to the big city, watch out, you're going to get bugged or blah, blah, blah. And I got to say, Philadelphia was always like, I always loved Philadelphia. I didn't like down street parking, but everything else was great. And then moving to Atlanta was definitely a big turning point. And then moving in with somebody, once I was here, that was a turning point too, as well. And then to break up with him was a whole other thing as well. So, like I said, there's so many turning points. I guess nowadays I'm pretty consistent. I mean, I can feel another turning point coming. I just don't know when it's going to happen, but when you get over 50, then you start making other decisions, and you got to really make decisions that affect your life. So, and I'm not against like having a relationship, but I just haven't met anybody. And they're different down here in the South than they are up north. Up north, everybody's very inclusive, and I feel like they get along well with each other. So I'll give you an example. So you go to a nightclub up in New York or Philadelphia, you're going to see everybody there. You're going to see women, men, transgender, you get a huge mix, drag queens, everything, and at the clubs up there. Down here, the clubs are so separate. It's like, this is the bear club, this is the leather club, this is the lesbian club, this is the, and they're so separate. And I think I got tired of the gay community here at the point where I brought two of my lesbian friends to I guess it would be a bear club. And the people just made fun of them and criticized them. And it really made me angry. And I don't understand how you can be like that. So coming from the New York and Philadelphia, and, where people are so inclusive, this was so separatist to me. And I was like, I don't understand how I can do that. And I was kind of done at clubs at that point. So, and now it's, to me, I feel like a lot of times, it's nice to dance and stuff, but overall, I think it's kind of like a waste of time to me nowadays. I'd rather go to a friend's house and watch a movie or hang out and have, a game night or a dinner or something. I think that's more fun to me. So, and you get to the point where you decide what's good for you, and that's what you choose to do. You're like, well, this works for me, I don't want to do that. And people, you feel like you're forced to go out to, people are like, you don't go to the nightclubs. And another thing is, I don't drink alcohol, so that was a whole nother thing, because I had so many arguments with people. And back in the day, people were like, they're in Harrisburg and stuff, they're like, that's fine, they just, can you drive me home, kind of thing. Well, I was a designated driver a lot. But down here, like, you don't drink alcohol? I was like, no. I said, I don't, it upsets my stomach and I really don't like the taste. And then they judged you because of it. I'm like, okay. So that was another thing. But when I see those signs, Barry, I'm just like, I don't need to be, you know, I don't hate you, but I just don't need to be around you, kind of thing. So, um, I'm comfortable with my life. I'm sure it could probably be more exciting, but I'm making a living and I enjoy my free time and I enjoy my friends. So, that's what else can you ask for? There's people with so much worse conditions. So, I mean, I'm glad to be content.
And so I just to wrap it up, I think I mentioned about the fact that if you have that T-shirt, or if you have other
Yeah,
things like
I have
documents,
photos and stuff too. I need to find.
photos, yeah, if you have anything
Yeah,
like that, we're collecting any kind of material that's related to Baglaya or Common Roads or any of the other groups that you may have been involved with, or events you may have been involved with in Harrisburg, in this area. So yeah, if you have anything like
I'll be
that,
glad to.
yeah, we'd love to either get it as originals or as photographs, or scans or whatever.
Okay.
That would be really wonderful, because
Yep.
we're trying to
Yeah, I'd be
document.
definitely glad to help.
That's great. And have we missed anything
I
that
have a
you want
question.
to? Oh, go ahead.
Um, what was why the name changed from Baglaya to Common Roads? I was just curious about how that came around.
Well, I'm not sure exactly why, or what prompted it, but I guess because of the nature of the way the community has evolved, it's like alphabet soup almost. You have so many different
Right.
um things that you start tacking
Pronouns
on.
and
Yeah, start tacking
right.
on to the end of these acronyms, that people have decided to go with things that are a little bit less acronym related sometimes,
And more generic. Yeah.
more generic.
That was smart
So
though.
yeah. I mean, I think Baglaya worked very well for its time, because people
Right.
were looking to connect with their community, and if you didn't say what these things were, bi, gay, and lesbian, then they wouldn't know what Common Roads
Correct.
was. But today they can you know, talk more generically and more inclusively throughout, anyone who identifies as being, somewhere on the spectrum of sexuality and gender identity. So we're getting a lot more of that kind of thing going on
No,
with
it's
a lot
totally
of groups.
understandable. Like
Yeah, yeah.
we all
Um,
evolve.
yes, exactly. Um, and have we missed anything that you wanted to say that you hadn't said so far?
Um, I think we covered everything. I just want to thank Sharon though, because I mean, if it wasn't for her, I don't know what the kind of person I would be. I don't know. So I'd like to think that I always be the same person, but that helped me establish myself both as a gay man, but also as uh, an extrovert and somebody that actually got out there and met people and did things. Like I said, I come from such an introverted background. Um, it definitely was a turning point. If you're talking about turning points, that was definitely one. So, um, and I'd like to thank all the people that were also in the group as well. Um, each one of them, so many characters and so many personalities. It was amazing, and I came in, and then people were so open, and I'm like, "Ooh, I'm not that open." um, they were so open about their life and their struggles and their families. Um, it was so inspiring to hear their stories um, and to be with them. And I kind of missed that group a lot. I think reliving stories and talking about that stuff would actually help people in their adult age as well. Um, you know, we know who we know and we hang out with who we hang out, but if you can get involved with a community group like that, I think it's both for yourself and to teach others and younger kids. Like I said, they have a lot more access to TV shows and learning and books and all that kind of stuff today that we never had back then. So I think a lot of kids feel more comfortable coming out at younger ages, and they're like, well, I gotta tell you, my best friend, her son is transgender, and for the longest, and this just recently happened in the last couple of years, so it was a transition for me too. It went from a girl who was my pretty much pseudo niece to becoming my pseudo nephew. And I'm sure the transition was hard for him. And he had a lot of struggles and still does, with identity as well, but he seems to be adapting to it really well. So, I mean, it was a personal thing in my life where I got to see this. And then I've had so many other friends, I wouldn't say experiment, but that were involved with same-sex relationships. Later on, they went on to be married to opposite gender, but it's just amazing. It's like, I guess I should put a book together with all the people that I've met and all the stories that I've heard. It's inspiring because, my friend's son is now in college, and every day he inspires me. So to get through life knowing that you've changed from one gender to another, and trying to both explore and accept, that these changes are in process. So like I said, every day we're learning new stuff, we're evolving. So, and like I said, there's a lot of pronouns out there. So it's like, and then they keep adding more colors to the rainbow flag. And I was like, oh, there's the bear colors. Well, that's good. And I just think with some, especially in the bear community, I mean, I wish evolving would still, they have evolved, but I still hope it keeps going, because not everybody's the same way. Not everybody's a muscle bear. Not everybody is, be a little bit open to other people, and there's, like I said, there's so much criticism and stereotypes within the gay community, and you just need to be open to other people. Get to learn to know them, learn their story, and be accepting. I mean, in this world of political, I don't even know what you really want to call it, where everybody's so against each other, it's nice to have a community that you feel comfortable with and are at home with. I'll just leave it at that. I could go on and on about it.
Well, I want to wrap up by saying that we really appreciate your time and your willingness to share your story with us today.